Hey, this is Rich. It's about the 4th of July 2007, and I wanted to let you know that things have changed a little bit in my electrodepositing, and I wanted to show you some of the newer processes that I have developed since the last video was made. As you can see, I'm still working with the composing stick just as I did before, and I find it very helpful to have the stick. I put my outer edges pieced just as I did before. Right, left, and top, and then I put the cast characters at equal total of 54 points, just like that, and then at the 8-point side bearing, the character to be deposited, and then I have to cut a piece of spacing material in to put on the side so that it comes up to 54 points exactly. I've done that, and then two 24 by 27 characters, and so I have the form set up just as before. And I'm still using string tie-up as before, using a piece of kite string. Get it enough wraps it that it holds together all right, and then I proceed wrapping further, always putting pressure on the string to keep it tight. The key in getting this tie up here is that none of the quads or the piece of type will move freely once it's tied up. I've probably got more string this time than I should have. And a little makeup rule will enable me to tuck the string under to keep it nice and tight. Now I've got the form in my hand. I'm checking to make sure that everything is solid, and it is. Next step is to level the form, which I've done previously in the other video. I'm using the same piece of material. I'm using the same 4-point piece of brass cut away to do my leveling, and I put it on top of the form like this. Turn it over carefully, and I'm working on my steel stone. Before I level this form, I want to put the hanger in it. I do have my spacer underneath it, which you can see the end of it sticking out right here. And so I can do the leveling, but I will screw it up if I put this hanger in after the fact. So I'm forcing the hanger into the hole that I previously drilled into one of my quads. Okay, now everything is there, and now I will double check by putting pressure on all 4 edges on each quad, and finally on the piece of type. And the piece of type dropped down just a little bit, probably about the thickness of a piece of Scotch tape, but I'm using this constant depth to establish where that character is rather than using a piece of tape or anything like that. Okay, so the character is now got the hanger on it and it's leveled. It's time to put the drilled out mat on it. You see here the drilled out matrix, and a couple of things about the mat. I do have the flange cut here so that it's wider on the outside, so if there's any pressure to pull the flower out of the mat, that flange will stop it from going. So I've cut the mat, and that's not changed it. Okay, now I'm just going to standard piece of Scotch tape right this, and I'm going to put it over top of the entire face of the character. You can see that I've got Scotch tape on it, and it's protecting it. Now I'll take an X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut the tape away from the outer areas because I don't want it to interfere with the registration of the character. And so now you see that I have a protective window, shall we call it a window, that covers the face of the mat. Now I take the mat and I put this character right on top of it, like that. Now you see where the term window comes in, so if you look hard enough you can still see the character underneath the Scotch tape. If the mat is the right width, and it is in this case, 54 points wide, then the mat will stay in place once it's pressed, being held by this flange here and this flange on the other side, the two flanges right here on each side. And I pushed it all the way to the top to get the top bearing, and so now the mat is held in place and I can actually turn it upside down and the mat won't fall out. And so this character is ready to go as far as the next step, and the next step is a little bit different now than what I have done in the past. Here's a product I want to show you. It's called plastic dip. It's a very viscous substance, and if you look on the top here, this jar says that it's clear, and that's very important. Okay, this is what I now use to put a protective coating on the entire character that's being done. And so I take the lid off. It's a liquid. It says to stir it. I did stir it earlier. Instructions are rather specific about putting this material, putting the mat in it. It says go down very slowly, very, very slowly, and that's what I'm doing, dipping it in until it's completely submerged. And then it says bring it out just as slowly. The first time I used this, I didn't read the instructions, and I came right back out real quickly, and guess what? The material ran off of the block. It didn't stay with it. And so I'm coming out real slowly this time. And you can see the little dabble at the bottom. Oh, it's actually a piece of my string. You can see now the character has got the plastic dip over it. This material takes several hours to dry, and so I'm just going to hang it up and let it dry. The frame that's now been dipped and dried, and it's time to cut it out in the center so that we can see what's going on. What I have to do is carefully cut with my X-Acto knife, and what I'm cutting into is the plastic dip, and down underneath the plastic dip is that piece of Scotch tape which kept the plastic dip from getting down into the letter in the first place. I have cut around the edge now. And you see I peeled away the plastic dip. It did not adhere to the Scotch tape, and here comes the Scotch tape. And behold, I've got the thing open. I must admit that I messed up. Rushed just a little bit too much. The top was not totally set up, and therefore I'm going to have to do some touching. What you see now is a character in place with the plastic dip around the surface, around the exterior. And zooming in, you can see the character, and right here you can see the edge where the plastic dip stops. And so the flower will grow inside the area where it's not protected by this plastic dip. You can still see the shape of the matrix and all that, so you know exactly what's there. In case you're wondering, that's a little piece of copper that remained on one of the frames. The frames have been used more than once to deposit mats. What my next step will be is to try to find some way of building up these edges around the piece all the way around so that the flower does not grow out as it tends to do, grow out into the outer areas. But for the meantime, for the present, I'm very pleased with what's going on here, and the plastic dip does do a great job of enabling me to make a nice block for dropping in the depositing tank.